So in this video, we're going to cover our first project in a series, and it's going to be about printing and mathematical equations. So we're going to get started by creating a new project in PyCharm. And this time we're going to call it learning because we're going to do much more of that here in the future. And let it create that for us. Alright, so real quick, in here we have the Python console. And it's going to be fairly similar, if not identical, for the most part, to our idle app. So if we go ahead and launch that, this allows us to do exactly what we did in the last lesson, where we printed hello world. And for those of you joining us, all we did was enter something like this, one line, and ran the program. You can view my previous video on the PyCharm interface, and it'll go over that. If not, we will be adding that here in just a moment. But if I go into idle and I type this out and then I hit enter, it will do just that. Print hello world out to the screen. Another thing this allows us to do is simple math. And something identical to what we just did is we can do the math with inside the print, and it's going to look identical. But it allows us to do math as well as print functions and test out other variables and different types of things that we might want to run through before we put it in our program. As with idle, the Python console does a lot of the same stuff. So we'll just go ahead and do the hello world again. And it prints hello world. The nice thing about this is it's much like a terminal. I can hit up on the up arrow key and it will go to that last command that I printed. In addition, it does the basic math, and again we can scroll up and I can scroll between my last few. So it's got a lot of bonuses and it's built right in, which is why we'll be sticking with PyCharm from here on out. I will have a series on idle if you're going to want it to use that, just some of the basics and setting it up and the differences between that and what I'm doing in PyCharm. That will be a future video. As for now, we'll be learning in here. So we can play around with different functionality. It'll behave just like a calculator. If we go ahead and do 5 plus 10 over 2, if you can guess what the answer is, it's going to follow the same logic as a normal calculator would, or what you have to do with operations, and it'll print out 10. Now, notice there it prints out 10.0. Something that we can do in Python is tell it that we want it to actually be an integer value. So the shorthand for that is int, and then you'll have parentheses, and what we can do is the same equation that we did above, 5 plus 10 divided by 2, and now we have a solid 10. If we wanted to specify, we could tell it that we did want that float value. And instead of int, we'll put float, and now we have the 10.0 again. If you are familiar with algebra, then you'll be familiar with variables. Variables, nothing more than a character or a series of letters, including names or whatnot, that we can call it in order to say values to. So, for instance, I could say x equals 5, and then hit x, and it's 5. If we want to just print x, same thing. So that's what constitutes a variable. Now, we can do a bit more with that, of course. We could do it just like we did in the previous equation, where we do x plus 10 over 2, and we get that 10 as expected because it's x is just 5, just like before. We can also, add more variables, and we can do y equals 5, and then we can do x plus y, and as expected, there's a 10. So there's a lot of different variations with that. Now, we can also make x equal to hello, just like we did with our hello world. And if we now print x, it says hello. And alternatively, we can do y equals, I want to do space world, and you'll see why here in a second, if you don't already put it together. And now we're going to print x plus y. Hello world. So there's another way of doing things. Just some fun that you can have in the editor. Alternatively, what we're going to want to do is we did create this learning project. I'll go ahead and finish with that by closing out. You can also just close out up top here. Now let's open up our learning folder in virtual environment. Right click on that, do new Python file. We'll name this project 1. And in project 1, we'll do much of what we just did. We'll set x equal to hello, y equal to space world with an exclamation point, and then we're going to print simply x plus y. Now, we'll need to go over to the project structure system here first, and you'll see, just like in my previous video, I love to apparently capitalize letters right away. I'm going to go ahead and refactor and rename, and we'll proceed. And I'm going to call this project_1. This wasn't the name of the file. This is the name of the actual Python file. And in Python, we typically name things in all lowercase, separated by underscores for spaces. Let's refactor that. All right, so now let's right click, and we'll do run project 1. As you can see, we have hello world. Now, alternatively, if I say z equals 5, and I try to print, we'll do x plus 5, or z in this scenario. And now what do you think is going to happen? Chances are you probably guess that it's going to say hello with a 5 at the end. That is not the case, because what we've set is, see, x is a string, which is a series of letters contained in between quotes. And I mean, I could put the number 5 here and it would work. As you saw, we saw the print x plus y with hello world print first, and then we encountered this error. But this is a string, and even if I put a 5 in here, it's still going to, we'll run through this real quick. You see, now it says hello 5 world, just as we have up here. So it's just a series of characters. And now I could do single quotes too, but we'll keep it as double quotes. Now, this is an integer, just like we've seen before. And if we want to specify this as an integer or string value, we would normally put int in front of it, right? But in this scenario, it knows it's an int. It says can only concatenate str, not int to str. So str stands for string, just like these. So instead here, we could put str, and now when we run our project, we'll get hello world, because we replaced and removed the 5 and moved it over to here, and we have hello 5. So that's how we can get around and print numbers within strings. That'll be the end of this video. In the next video, we'll move on to some other functionality that we can do with Python to learn some of the basics. If you like this video, please go ahead and hit that like button. I'd also appreciate any subscribes, and as always, post down in the comments below if you have any questions or requests for future videos. Thank you.